One thing I wanted to say real quick before I lost it. Okay, Gog and Magog. So what's going on right now has a lot to do with Gog and Magog, the end of the world. So if you guys will go to Revelation chapter 20, Genesis chapter 10, and then Ezekiel, and I'll have to get you the text in Ezekiel again. I believe it's 38, 30, no, 39 and 40, around there. But they go into Gog and Magog and the end of the world, and God gathering up all the nations to come against the children of Israel, right? So, okay, so Gog, Magog. If you look at Genesis chapter 10, Genesis chapter 10 identifies Gog and Magog as the descendants of Japheth. The Japhethites have historically been known as the Europeans, right? They've been historically light-skinned, historically in the European areas for the most part, and in the Eastern Europe areas. So we can trace Magog, or at least some of Japheth's line down to the Magog generation, to Genghis Khan and the Chinese army, right? We can track it there. But one of the reasons why is because Genghis Khan himself claimed to be a descendant of Togarmah. So if you look at Togarmah, Togarmah is one of the sons of Japheth, one of the sons of Japheth, and he's descended from one of those brothers, either from the first generation or the second generation. I can't remember which one. But if you look at Genesis 10, it explains all this. I think it's the very first brother that they go over is Japheth, or Japheth, and all of his descendants are there. Togarmah is there. Ashkenaz is there. That tells you about the Ashkenazi Jews. But Gog and Magog are there, or I believe Magog. It may not say Gog. It may just say Magog. I can't remember. It's one or the other. But of course, Magog means from Gog. So if you've got one, you've got the other nearby. So Gog and Magog tied to the Chinese of today. So that's one part. Another part is that the Russian people are also connected to China and that Eastern Chinese, Mongol ancestry. So Russia comes into this mix too. They're in the same area, they're of the same style of people, and it just makes sense. It follows that if Togarmah is China or related to Genghis Khan and Chinese imperialism, then their neighbors, their brothers, could possibly be, and we believe are, Gog, Magog, Russia. So you're looking at a double-headed dragon, Gog being Russia and Magog being China. And so there's another aspect of this that has to be addressed because it's in the news right now. The capital of Ukraine is Kiev. And of course, Ukraine is all over the news right now. And it's interesting because Kiev is the ancient capital of the Khazarian Empire. And if you know anything about the Khazarians, there's a whole, trove of information about them online. The Khazarians are the ancient Jewish group which were in the Ukraine area, million-man country, that ruled that area fairly strongly in, 1000 BC, around that time period. And that period, there was a religious upheaval and a religious change going on. You had the Muslims, which were a very new religion at that time. It had only been out a few hundred years, but were very powerful and were conquering in the Middle East. And you also had the Christians, who had been ruling for 1,000 years also in the same region in Europe. And then you also had the Jews who had been, around much longer and religious much longer. Those three groups of people um, were the Abrahamic religions and still exist to this day, but they were also surrounded by pagan religions, and the Khazarian Empire was one of these pagan religions, one of the really powerful ones. The king of Khazaria one day decided to become Jewish, to change his religion because his people, he said that the pagan religion that they were in, was destroying his people, and he saw the longevity and the morality of the other nations, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews, and desired to have more structure in his kingdom. And he invited three scholars from the three communities, and I assume that these are Jews that were actually that were related to the ancient Jews, because in 1000 AD there were Jews that were not actually related to the biblical Jews, that they were offshoots or other groups of people. We know from Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3 that those groups existed very early. So those groups, those three groups, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, came to see the king of Khazaria, and the Khazarian king required of them to, preach to him basically, and say, okay, this is the reason why you should become a Christian. This is the reason why you should become a Jew. This is the reason why you should become a Muslim. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to go with the most ancient, and those are the Jews. And so his entire kingdom converted to Judaism. And this is in about 1000 AD. And you can look it up. And those Khazarian Jews that transferred over then were, white-skinned, and history associates them with the majority of the white-skinned Jews that we see today. That the ancient Jews were black-skinned, and the people that we know of as the African Americans today. But those group of Jews are also in the same area and also claim connection to Togomo and to this Gogish Empire. And the capital of that Gogish Empire is Kiev. And since Kiev is in the news now, and we're here pivoting on a critical moment in that region, a region where Gog and Magog are reported to have existed, and from the groups of people who they're reporting to have descended from, or have purported to descend from Gog and Magog. You also have a huge awakening of Israelites in America. You also have world government and world restrictions being put in place by world government. All of these things happening at one time. So I just wanted to come on here and lay kind of all that out as you witnessing the Gog and Magog army, not just taking over the world, because you can say that they've pretty much taken over the world already, but now just flexing their muscles and making public alliances through wars that have been detrimental to the people of the country, but not to the leaders of the country. So don't be surprised if Ukraine and Russia are not really at the top levels fighting, even though at the bottom levels, okay, I got some stuff that's got to get done. I have to go ahead and log off. Shalom, shalom.